cross-planet internet, self-appointed scientists are filming outrageous acts of science. These internet heroes are doing bizarre experiments, making extraordinary inventions, and creating amazing scientific stunts. We gathered a team of top science brains to analyze just how they do it, why they do it, and choose the very best. It's science, but not as you know it. So stand back and don't even think about trying this at home. No, seriously. In this show, we'll be traveling to the outer reaches of the Hackaverse to visit those intrepid inventors who take one thing, turn it into another, and give us sweet science in the process.
To be part of the Hackaverse, you have to reorder the ordinary, flip it, change it, and make it extraordinary.
I'm not a robot. I'm a unicorn.
In the Hackaverse, if what you're doing is in the instruction manual, you're doing it wrong.
Well, I want to see some hacking that takes things that just shouldn't be put together and just mash them up and create something totally outrageous and awesome.
So now that we know what it takes to be a part of the Hackaverse, let's begin with number 20. What do you do with a couple of inner tubes, 2 fans, and some metal rods? Well, how about this? It's the Kangaroo, the ultimate off-road vehicle. No terrain is too tough, including water.
I think the Russian guy with the crazy 2-wheel vehicle is a genius.
So we went to St. Petersburg, Russia, for a chat with inventor Igor Kozarenko to find out why he calls his hack the Kangaroo.
Название кенгуру получило то, что очень похоже на движение, которое делает именно австралийское кенгуру, то бишь животное. То есть для толчка, то есть первого толчка, ему нужен хвост, он на него опирается. То есть точка опоры. И здесь получается то же самое.
Well, that explains how it balances, but how do you steer this awesome hack?
He's chosen to use fans for thrust. And with the fans, he has thrust no matter what surface he's on. But not only that, the fans give him the ability to maneuver. If he increases the speed on one fan, he can turn in one direction or increase the speed on the other fan and turn in the other direction. So as he's driving, he can do exactly what an airplane or a tank does. He can stop one wheel and allow the other wheel to continue to move, and by doing so, he can turn.
Marvelous. But how does Igor keep his feet dry?
This vehicle comes alive for me when he's on the water, and the science behind it is amazing. It's all to do with Archimedes' principle.
Archimedes? Do tell us more.
Basically what's happening there is the wheels need to displace the same amount of weight and water as the weight of the vehicle.
I did a few calculations. He weighs 80 kilos. His vehicle weighs 40 kilos. Together, that's 120 kilos. And what's that in water? 120 litres. So each tyre displaces 60 litres. That's like the volume of a rucksack. And that's nothing. It's just such a simple idea.
A simple idea that shows good hacking is science and art.
Это истинное творчество, когда не думаешь о будущем заработке, что ли, о том, что это когда-то будет продаваться. Сначала это просто любопытство.
Igor, we salute you and your kangaroo.
I've seen some crazy stuff down on shopping carts in my day, but this definitely takes the cake.
Shopping carts are hardly crazy. Wait. Yep, this one's crazy. This impressive hack is brought to us by J.P. Montello from California. And our expert saw epic chemistry in his shopping cart rocket.
JP has chosen to make his rocket fuel out of sorbitol, which is a common sugar.
So how does sugar make a shopping cart fly?
The reason he's chosen it is because it contains a lot of energy. Now, to launch this rocket into the sky, his job is to get all of that energy out of the sugar as fast as possible.
So all JP has to do is take this fuel, the sugar, mix it with an oxidizer. Then, when he lights that on fire, it causes a chemical reaction.
And this ends up creating a lot of hot gases, carbon dioxide, water molecules as steam, and nitrogen. And all of these expanding gases are forced down the tube, and this shoots the trolley into the sky.
Making this the ultimate shopping cart rocket. Meet Anthony Albert from South Carolina.
This guy has got the perfect haircut for this experiment. It could be modelled on Justin Bieber. It could be modelled on the need to show us how to bend water.
So you need to get your comb your hair.
Yes, Anthony does have an awesome bowl haircut. But he also has a great party trick. So how does Anthony's hair combing make water defy gravity?
The reason that he's able to bend this water is all down to our old friend static electricity. And when he combs his hair, what he's doing is something called triboelectric charging. So you end up with the comb becoming negatively charged. Water molecules compose of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, and you get more electrons around the oxygen, making that slightly negative, and less electrons around the hydrogens, making them slightly positive.
As we know, opposites attract. Now, as he brings the negatively charged comb towards the stream of water, the positive ends start to slightly line up towards the comb, creating this curvature in the flow of the water.
Well done, Anthony. You've turned your comb into a static-charged water-bending rod of science. Here we see an empty wine vat. And here we see a sweet-voiced Slovakian earning his place on our list by doing this. Well, how many wine vat opera houses have you seen? Amazing. But what's going on in the tank that creates the crazy effect on Yuri's voice?
It does not sound like it would sound if his head was outside of the barrel. And the reason why is because of reverb.
Reverb?
When he sticks his head in his barrel and begins to sing, the sound waves are going to strike the surface of the barrel, and they're going to reflect. And they're going to reflect around inside this barrel over and over.
But when it comes out, it may have made 1 reflection, 2, 3, maybe more. In fact, all the different sound waves coming out will have traveled reasonably different distances. It's this kind of smearing effect where all the sounds are blended together that makes the singing sound so good.
So in live orchestral music, the concert halls are actually designed to utilize this reverb effect as well. You have smooth walls all around, and you have the sound reflecting, and you actually generate the reverb.
So by bouncing his voice off the smooth walls, Yuri mimics an entire choir. Take 2 amateur scientists, some mysterious liquid, and 1 gigantic candy. And what do you get? Answer: extreme hacker science.
This is the most havoc I've ever seen by a gummy bear.
Over 1.7 million of us watched this clip and wondered what could make a gummy bear explode.
In the clip, the boys bring in a frying pan of potassium chlorate.
And when you heat up potassium chlorate, it decomposes into potassium chloride and oxygen. And this reaction is very exothermic, which means it creates a lot of heat. A lot of heat and a lot of oxygen only needs a lot of fuel to suddenly become a very large fire.
Fuel? Enter our brave bear.
The gummy bear used in this clip is 18 times the size of a normal gummy bear. It's going to be packed with sugar,
which is basically being burnt by the oxygen being provided by the potassium chlorate. And this generates a lot of heat, which in turn speeds up the decomposition of potassium chlorate, making more oxygen, which makes the reaction faster, which gives you more heat, which gives you more oxygen, which gives you more heat, and the reaction just runs away until it explodes.
Nice. So far, our hackers have driven on lakes, sent shopping carts skywards, and made water dance. But coming up on our journey through the Hackiverse, we'll encounter a storm of science as we see musical glasses, the power of oranges, and an enormous pair of lungs. All this and more on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to our countdown of the best hackers in the Hackiverse. As we reach the top 15, our experts are looking for even more cunning ways to turn the mundane into the insane. And where better to continue than with 2 classically trained musicians and 50 wine glasses. Polish duo Eric and Anna Schafanitz use wine glasses to make sweet, sweet music.
I want to hug everybody involved, you know, the bald guy, that elegant woman, the people who made the glass, everybody.
We found Eric and Anna in a London recording studio, where we asked them all about their glass harp.
We used to play in a Baltic Philharmonic Orchestra in Gdańsk before, but we gave up our instruments, and now full-time we play the glass harp.
And over 2.5 million internet users are glad they did. So how do you make a glass sing?
Everything in the universe vibrates at a certain frequency, and this is called a resonance frequency. Now, as you rub the glass, if you do it with enough skill, and these guys are, you can basically make the glass start to vibrate.
If you were to zoom in really closely and actually slow it down, you would actually see the vibrating glass going in this pinching, squeezing motion, and it's doing this hundreds of times per second, super, super fast.
And what that's doing is it's making the air inside it, it's like a chamber, it's forcing the air in and out. And because the air's moving, you're going to get a sound wave produced, basically the frequency at which the glass is vibrating, and that's what gives this its distinctive sound.
But you can't get Tchaikovsky out of a glass. Where are all those notes coming from?
The thickness of the glass and the size of the glass determine that resonant frequency. For example, a smaller piece of glass will resonate at a higher frequency than a bigger piece of glass, in the same way that a thinner piece of glass will resonate at a higher frequency than a thicker piece of glass. So, if you have a big, thick glass, that will be a low note. If you have a thin, little glass, that will be a high note.
We ordered about 2,000 glasses to get our instrument, to get all those notes we need, and to be quite sure that we'll get it.
There's no doubt Eric and Anna's beautiful music hack deserves a round of applause. They say a man's best friend is his dog, but sometimes a dog's best friend is a robot. Meet the Darwin Bot, a breakthrough in hacker science from the brain of Jordan Correa from Washington. He designed a robot to keep his dog Darwin amused while he was at work.
So here's the robot. I can show you some of the features. Probably the most predominant feature is the ball launcher here. I also have a robotic arm that I use to autonomously retrieve the ball. On this side I have a treat dispenser. I also have a pan and tilt camera on the front for looking around. That's what it took to put this robot together.
But how has Jordan created this pooch-pleasing technology?
What Jordan has done is build a command center in his office. So this is where he's going to be giving commands, sending them over a Wi-Fi link to the robot. Then the robot has basically game controller software on it that takes those programs and does things like move the claw, throw the ball.
What I find amazing here is the lack of any lag. Think of how much is going on at once. Jordan's got to put the instructions into his games controller. The controller interprets those instructions, sends them to the laptop takes them, sends them over the internet. The robot's then got to decode them, work out what they are, and then actually move the motors or whatever's happening. As well as this, he's sending video and audio, all of this at once, and yet there's no lag at all.
But is there a danger that Darwin Bot could ever replace Jordan?
I don't think the dog cares if it's a robot, you know? It's just like, give me treats, throw me a ball, pick up my poop. I'm happy.
Everyone loves bubbles. But a true hacker would never be happy with regular-sized bubbles. So Sylvain Touvet decided to create these in the woods outside Paris.
It looks like you get to be a kid again and play with bubbles, but you're an adult, which means you can do it enormously, and no one can tell you to stop.
Almost 300,000 of us have seen Sylvain's size. But just how does he get him so big?
The whole thing that governs this is surface tension. Now, water has a very high surface tension, and this is because water molecules like to spend time bound to other water molecules. They don't like to spend time interacting with the air. And if you make a giant bubble, you're actually making a very large surface that is in contact with the air. So you're going to need to add some kind of chemical that will lower the surface tension, like soap. Soap molecules have two parts. One part that is very happy being in contact with water, and another part that is very happy being in contact with the air.
What you have is a very, very thin layer of water with soap molecules on either side of it. So you can think of the edge of a bubble as like a sandwich. It's got soap molecules, tiny bit of water, more soap molecules.
And this dramatically lowers the surface tension of the bubble and allows you to have these giant shapes and gives you elasticity so that the bubbles can move and deform without popping.
So how does Sylvain stop his big bubbles from immediately bursting?
Bubbles burst when the water in the soap-filled sandwich all evaporates. So to stop them from bursting, you have to stop the evaporation. And this guy's done two things. He's put glycerol in the solution, which is kind of a sugary substance, and that means the water evaporates a lot slower. He's also doing this on a very damp, humid day. And because there's more moisture in the air around the bubble, the water inside the film is evaporating a lot slower.
So by using some clever chemistry, Sylvan created a bubbly hack.
There's not only a lot of science going on here, but I think there's also a lot of skill going on. I think Sylvian has practiced in his giant bubble-making forest.
Our next hackers took an orange and extracted its power. Yes, power.
I think it's a good way to use fruit that's not used, perhaps, from children's lunchboxes or something.
So how does an orange produce light?
Normally, you would power things with batteries, and these guys have made pretty much exactly that. They have made a fruit battery.
What they've got here is an orange and two different metals. Now the two metals are put into the orange and they both react with the citric acid, but they react quite differently.
There is an oxidation reaction at the zinc terminal, and this releases negative electrons. And there is also a reduction reaction which happens at the copper terminal, which absorbs electrons.
The electrons that are produced want to travel to the other one where they're needed, and in doing so, you can create a complete circuit and therefore a flow of electricity.
But not content with one bulb, these hackers took orange power to a new level and created the spectacular internet app for fruit juice.
One orange can generate 0.7 volts of energy going through the circuit, which is enough to power a small LED bulb. However, to light up the whole sign, these guys needed 1,800 volts to go through their circuit. This meant they had to link up 2,500 oranges, all in a big long line.
So experts, oranges in energy crisis? Discuss.
So now we can work out how much power they've managed to produce, and it turned out to be 1.75 watts. If they wanted to run the lowest wattage orange juicer, they'd need 20 watts, which is the equivalent of 28,500 oranges. That's 28,500 oranges just to squeeze one orange. It's definitely not the answer to all our problems. Eat the fruit.
Now for a spectacular biological hack. Rachel Peterson from Washington State wanted to show her kids how lungs work. So she purchased some cow lungs from her local butcher and attached a leaf blower.
Lungs just look weird. But then again, I guess they weren't designed to travel around without the rest of the cow attached.
Some people might think this looks a little bit gross to see these lungs being inflated on the table, but to me as a biologist, I think it's amazing to see how this organ really works.
When a cow breathes, it's taking in oxygen through its bronchial tubes. And it goes through the bronchial tubes and into the lungs and into these tiny, tiny little tubes called alveoli. And the purpose of the alveoli is to increase the surface area where gas exchange can take place.
We're talking up to 500 square meters of surface area within a lung. And this is to be able to transfer oxygen into the tissues and to allow CO2 or carbon dioxide to transpire out of the tissues. So surface area is really critical in the lung.
So Rachel's leaf blower replicates breathing on a table. But these lungs look like they could burst. Would they ever really get this big?
An ordinary breath for a cow is about 1 gallon of air, or 5 liters. But when you take the lungs outside the body and attach this leaf blower, you can inflate them to about 4 times that size.
Now that's some serious lung-busting science that you'll only find in a hackaverse. We're at the halfway point in our countdown, and so far our hackers have displayed ingenuity by bending the world to their will. And number 10 is no exception, as a man finds ice and makes fire. When Tim Jones was out and about in the frozen wilds of Oklahoma, he felt a bit chilly. So this hacker took ice and transformed it in a way that had our experts basking in the warm glow of science. It was fire from ice.
Tim can't use any old ice. He has to search out a very particular type of ice, like this. What he's looking for is the really clear ice that light can go straight through. And now he's going to turn it into a lens. He can use the heat from his hands to selectively melt the ice. He can gradually perfectly smooth off one side so it's nice and flat, and then he can round off the other one so it forms a fantastic convex lens.
But what's happening that lets an icy lens create fire?
The convex side of this lens is allowing the light to come in, and as it hits it, it bends it inwards. And when it bends it inwards, it focuses it all into one direction. It makes it converge into a single point.
This wood is certainly catching on fire quickly, and that's because it's not just wood. Tim has cunningly put a bit of gunpowder in there, which, as well as combusting very quickly, catches on fire at a much lower temperature. Some people would say that's cheating. I just say it's being resourceful.
So far, our hackers have turned carts into rockets, oranges into batteries, and ice into fire. But coming up, our hackers push things even further on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to our voyage through the Hackiverse. So far, we've had bot buddies for dogs, a massive set of lungs on a table, and a massive set of lungs in a barrel. But as we reach number 9, it's time to hit the road. This bit hacker is Alex Astillion, and he left our experts breathless with his road treadmill.
He basically looked at all the equipment in the gym and thought, how can I make all them go down the street?
This clip is one that makes me say, why?
Good question. We went to New York State for a conversation with Alex.
I was always fascinated about running and running on the machines like treadmills. And then the idea came to my mind, why you cannot run your errands and do exercise.
Show us your mobile treadmill, Alex.
Has brakes and has a steering. It's ready to go on the road. You want to try it?
Yeah, maybe, but let's see how it works first.
So this is a pretty simple design here. He just has the belt that he's running on, and that is simply turning cogs that then reverse the motion to turn the wheels.
Whenever you transfer energy from one system to another, you're going to lose some energy as heat and sound. So you're going to lose energy between your feet and the treadmill on the axle on the wheels, and finally the wheels and the ground. It would take more energy to go the same distance on a speed fit than it would as if you were running.
So Alex has made our workout machines work us out even more when we're working out.
I'm not sure if this is ahead of its time, behind its time, from another time, from a parallel time.
That's 10 miles per hour. 50 miles, be careful.
But, you know, let's put that aside and enjoy the innovation here.
Meet urban entomologist Matt Camper from Colorado State University. He wanted a unique temporary tattoo, so he put his hacker hat on and came up with this.
I can already feel them tickling my arm as they stick in.
Yes, it's a bed bug tattoo gun, made from a jar, some wire mesh, and thousands of hungry bed bugs. It creates a slightly gross bunny rabbit tattoo of bite marks.
If you're getting bitten by 1,000 bed bugs, bunny rabbit is really a bit soft. You go for something a bit harder, maybe a skull and crossbones.
So why did these bed bugs tattoo Matt's arm?
Bedbugs are what are known as hematophages. They feed exclusively on blood. Bedbugs find us via two sources. Firstly, they can detect our body heat, and secondly, they can detect our carbon dioxide emissions. And they don't need to be that close. They can be 10 feet away and still find food. They inject what's called a stylet, and there's 2 tubes here. And through one of these tubes, they're sending in their saliva. And the saliva has both an anticoagulant, a chemical that actually keeps the blood from clotting up, and also an anesthetic. So this is really good because whoever they're biting, in this case Matt, can't feel it.
And when the bugs back off, what's Matt in for?
2 hours after the bed bugs have fed, the inflammatory response really kicks in, and immune cells like cytokines and histamines will flood into the tissues from the blood, producing redness and swelling and heat.
A lovely tattoo of a rabbit.
So right now we're at about 72 hours. The hives are still huge, but you can definitely tell that it's a nice bunny rabbit.
But sadly for Matt, his bedbug bunny won't last long. Just 2 weeks later, it's gone.
Hello there.
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. You?
I'm okay.
Oh, sorry, you weren't talking to me.
There's a thing called Cleverbot, which is an attempt to teach a computer how to have a conversation.
Yes, you are a robot and your name is Cleverbot.
I am a robot.
People can talk with Cleverbot over the internet, but one fine day at Cornell University, 2 students, Jason Yazinski and Igor Labutov, hacked together a conversation between 2 Cleverbots called Alan and Sruthi.
I am a robot.
Yes, I know.
Together we are robots.
So how can a robot have a conversation at all?
There are roughly 2 ways to teach a computer how to have a conversation. There's the hard way, which involves teaching it how language works and sentence structure and giving it a database of concepts and ways to assemble replies. So it takes what you give it, analyzes it, and tries to assemble a response.
I'm not a robot. I'm a unicorn.
But you said earlier that you were a robot.
I did not.
Cleverbot does it the lazy way. All Cleverbot's done is had a lot of conversations, talked to a lot of humans, and it's remembered everything it said. Then when someone says something new to it, it looks back through its database, it finds the most similar thing it's ever said, has a look what the human said in response, and then uses that.
But you say you were not helpful, therefore you're a meaning.
How you say it ought to.
That does not make sense.
Don't you want to have a body?
So what they've done by setting up the robot on the robot is they set up a positive feedback loop.
2 versions of the same program, 2 versions of Cleverbot, where you're feeding the output from one into the input of the other one.
Are you good?
Yes, I am good. I just said I was.
No, you didn't. I said I was.
It does get very heated very quickly. I mean, at one point, one of them calls the other one a meanie.
But you say you were not helpful, therefore you're a meaning.
How you say it ought to.
I don't know where the computer learned that. I mean, there's no bad language on the internet.
Fearless flashlight fiend Kip K took hacking to new heights in his kitchen when he cooked a turkey with the heat of 6 flashlights.
I imagine it was a pretty dried out turkey.
At least use some good masala.
But we're more interested in science than fine dining. How can 6 flashlights cook a bird in just 2.5 hours?
Every time you use a bulb to create light energy, there's actually a lot of waste. Only about 5 or 10% of the energy is converted into useful light energy. He's using 100-watt torches, which means 90 watts is being converted into heat energy by each of those torches.
The other good thing about Kip's flashlights is that they're very focused. A normal light bulb will diffuse the light and the heat coming from it. But because Kip's flashlights keep the heat and the light so focused, they cook the turkey really well.
I would love to cook my Thanksgiving turkey like this. Unfortunately, I don't have this many batteries.
Our hackers have found science in unlikely objects. They've turned torches into ovens, glasses into music, and oranges into light. But as we reach the top 5, prepare to meet some hackers who have re-engineered their own brains. Soccer is known as the beautiful game. But when Steve and West and friends decided to strap on binoculars and play, things got very, very ugly.
I could finally compete against somebody if they have their binoculars and I have no binoculars. I might have a chance.
So why are they so terrible?
At the beginning of the game, their eyes are telling them one thing and their bodies are experiencing another. They think the ball is closer than it actually is, and so they're not kicking in the right place.
Yes, they see this. But this is what it really looks like.
What our eyes are doing is just sending only visual information to the brain. It's just like a photograph. And the brain is doing the interpretation job. So the brain now has to see what is really happening here and combine it with other senses.
So when you put the binoculars on, there's a mismatch between what you see and what you sense. And that's why you see people when their eyes are saying, at this point, you should be kicking the ball. And in fact, they're just swinging their leg through the air.
Okay, wait a minute. That was a goal. And another one. Hey, are they actually getting better at binocular? Yes, we have to work.
The brain has this amazing ability to adapt. So the visual cortex is transforming this information and combining it with experience. So they see a very close football, even though it's far away. They try to kick it. They can't. They keep on trying until at some point they can kick the ball. And then the brain connects this information. If you think that the ball is there, still go 3 steps before you kick. And you can remember this information, and next time you can apply this knowledge, and then you can kick better and achieve a goal.
Sarah German has sensory neural deafness, and for 29 years, she could only hear very loud sounds. In this clip that had 29 million of us glued to the screen, Sarah has just had a device implanted and hears normally for the first time in her life.
There you go, it's beeping. So now technically your device is on. Can you tell? Oh, that's exciting!
The
It must be overwhelming when after 29 years you can hear for the first time. No wonder she's crying.
Our experts were emotional too, so we went to Texas to meet Sarah and find out more.
What you're seeing is 29 years worth of waiting for that moment. They turn the device on, and I hear her say, okay, it's on now. And I was just like freaking out. I set the remote down, and I realized I hear the clacking of the remote being set down on the countertop. And then I kind of gasp because I hear that. And then I realized I could hear myself gasping. And then that led to like crying. And then I realized I hear myself crying. And then I start giggling, and that's loud. And then there's people talking, and I'm talking, and it was just sensory overload.
For Sarah, hearing her own voice for the first time was obviously emotional. But why couldn't she hear it before?
Ordinarily, when a sound comes into your outer ear, it goes to the middle ear, which turns it into a series of vibrations that affect your inner ear. The inner ear has a fluid that vibrates.
In this liquid, we have thousands of tiny hairs which then start moving. And in the moment they do that, we have a neural signal, and our brain knows there is a sound, and that's how it usually works.
Ordinarily, a person has about 35,000 of these little hair cells. Sarah only has about 5,000. So she's going to need a much larger vibration to push them around for her brain to pick up the sound.
Can you hear me?
So what have the doctors done to her ear?
What Sarah has is an implant, and in order to get it into her head, they had to separate 2 of the 3 bones inside the ear, and now the vibrations which reach those bones are detected by a sensor.
When the sensor picks up the vibrations, sends it to a processor that's actually been put in behind her ear, and then the processor amplifies these signals, sends it back to the 3rd bone in the middle ear, and then the 3rd bone is sending these amplified signals to her very small number of sensory hair cells that are in her inner ear. So she's able to hear a normal conversation now.
And how has hearing changed Sarah's life?
Obviously, the top choice for me personally as a mom is hearing the kids. You know, hearing them and being able to be what I feel is a better mother to them is the top thing.
This is just a remarkable achievement in technology and understanding how the body functions.
Coming up next, it's time for our top 3 when outrageous acts of science bows before the high lords of the Hackiverse. Welcome back. So far, we've hacked brains, bed bugs, and huge bubbles. But now, it's time for an underwater trip. Brothers Logan and Jordan Needham from Nevada made an online splash when they hacked together an underwater den they named the Bubble Room.
I love this clip. Who doesn't want a secret hideaway under the water? It's amazing.
So how did the Bubble Room originally form?
What they did, they got a metal frame which they anchored to the bed of the lake with rocks. They make that doesn't go anywhere. And then when they want to have their fun in the bubble, they take down their big sheet of vinyl and climbing webbing to reinforce it, hoik it over the top and attach it down, and then inject in air from scuba diving equipment, which is then trapped.
The problem is keeping it there. If left to their own devices, heavy things sink and light things float up. And so air underwater wants to drift up. The buoyancy of something is the same as the amount of water it's displacing. And because this thing is about 2,500 litres, and water is a kilogram per litre, the total weight of all the water it's displacing is over 2.5 tonnes. That's over 5,600 pounds of force trying to rip this thing off the bottom of the lake.
You'd have to make sure that the vinyl sheet and the climbing webbing could be used as a hammock for a rhino. That's how strong it has to be.
So the structure of the Bubble Room has to be incredibly strong. But the real question is, how long can they stay down there?
Given that we know the size of the dome, we can work out just how long these guys can spend in it. It's about 14 hours for one person and 3.5 hours for 4 people. Now, you might think that the problem with spending the time in the dome is that you're going to end up using up the oxygen. But the bigger problem is actually that you're going to be breathing out carbon dioxide. Now, when carbon dioxide concentrations get up to around 7-8%, this is when they start to cause problems and can cause dizziness and suffocation. And this is going to bring your bubble room party to a very abrupt end.
This was amazing. I've never seen an illusion this good on the internet.
Illusion? Whoa.
In the beginning, it looks so realistic. When they zoom in on it, you can see all the details. But then suddenly they stick their hands right in the middle of it and turn around, and you're like, what? Even when you know it's an illusion, they're turning it round and you can see that it's flat. Turn it back again, and immediately it's three-dimensional to you. That is amazing.
This mind-melting stunt is the work of master illusionist Rodeo Breen. He's hacked together some printouts and a strategically placed camera, and made 23 million of us say, what?
These are known as anamorphic illusions, and they basically prey on the fact that we have evolved in a three-dimensional space. And pretty much all of our experience is in a three-dimensional space, so we're very good at understanding the world in that sense.
We perceive the world in 3 dimensions, but our eyes only register things in 2 dimensions, and that's because you just get a flat image on the back of your retina. But since you have 2 eyes, your brain is used to combining those things, knowing the distance between them, into a 3D picture of the world for yourself. Knowing what rules the brain operates on, you can fool the brain by violating some of those rules. You have to take these pictures, which are high quality to begin with, so that they even look like the real objects, and then skew them in some kind of graphical program in such a way that when you look at them from one angle, they look like the original object. This probably took a lot of practice.
But even when we know it's an illusion, we keep seeing it as a 3D image. Awesome.
Your hard wiring that's taken millions of years to evolve still wants to look for the three-dimensional thing. It's completely, deeply hardwired, and it's next to impossible to turn off.
Our hackers have taken the everyday world and twisted it in ways we could never have imagined. And they've left huge puddles of science in their wake. We've seen mobile treadmills, singing glasses, and feuding robots.
Don't you want to have a body?
But we're finally at number 1. And our experts have chosen the ultimate hackers. On a snowy day in March 2013, the new lords of the Hackerverse strode boldly forth.
For sheer size and sheer awesomeness, I have to say that these guys are my kings of the Hackerverse.
And with this clip, the Russian hackers changed how we think about cars forever. How did they do this? By combining automobile technology and the internet, thus creating the driverless car.
This has got to be the future. Not only could you come out of the restaurant and control your car to come right by the door and you hop in, you could then just sleep off your meal in the back.
Our experts were so amazed at the sight of a car driving solo that we went to Tula to catch up with hackers Sergey and Eugene and their beautiful driverless car.
На самом деле у нас вся команда Virtual, команда единомышленников. Вот мы уже несколько лет вместе осуществляем нашу мечту. Вообще, наша мечта — это коротко управлять чем угодно, откуда угодно. Это удаленное управление разными объектами с видеонаблюдением происходящего. Управление машиной реализовано по довольно несложному принципу. У человека-оператора есть планшет, iPad, есть специальное приложение, на котором нарисованы руль, педали, а с планшета команда управления уходит на установленный в машине контроллер.
An app, you say? How does that power this wonderful hack?
Once it's in a car, it just transfers that data into pistons and levers to operate the accelerator and brake, or a motor to move the steering wheel. Meanwhile, there's data going back from a camera that's in the car that'll go same route back to the tablet so we can see what it's doing.
So, are there limits to how far they can remotely control their car?
The car is running on local Wi-Fi signal, and that's brilliant. But Wi-Fi's got quite a limited range, maybe 50 to 60 meters. And so if you wanted to take the car out further, you could shift over to the 3G mobile phone network. But there is dangers with that. The network can crash, and that means you could lose contact with the car.
To be honest, the last thing you would want to see when trying to remotely control a real car is a buffering wheel pop up.
However, they have built in a kind of safety backup system that if the car loses contact with the tablet computer, the brakes are automatically applied.
Despite a few small problems, our experts see the future in this killer hack.
Developing technology in this direction will lead to applications that we will not have foreseen. Мы просто искренне верим, что будущее за такими вещами. То сейчас пришло это время, есть быстрый интернет, технологии дешевеют. Если приложить к этому умелые руки, то все получится.
Our ultimate hackers have used engineering excellence to boldly go where no man has gone before. Combining internet technology with the humble car.
These guys have to be number one because they're laying down the foundations of the technology of the future.
Hacking is all about breaking into one system and integrating it with another system. In this case, they've basically broken apart this car and they've integrated it with a tablet. So they've taken the car online.
Eugene, Sergey, and team, you are number one in the Hackiverse. So while they take a final spin, we say do svidaniya. Until next time, comrades, on Outrageous Acts of Science.